This morning, I talked about CNN's unhinged conspiracy theory that a journalist working alongside, the government actors and military personnel and the doctors and Trump were all colluding to trick people into believing that Trump was really, really sick and that it's a big cover up, even though we see Trump walking around. We hear about the media bias all the time, but I got bad news for you. I don't want to be overly pessimistic, but now we have this story. Facebook removes Trump post comparing COVID-19 to flu. Yeah, kind of. The post was about other stuff. What Trump basically said was, here's what he said. COVID in most populations is far less lethal. And he was talking about the flu. I think he might be referring to young people, that for most young people, it probably is. I mean, maybe not. I don't know for sure. But the bigger issue is, shouldn't the president be allowed to say what he wants to say without having his posts removed? I mean, how many people post insane, garbled nonsense like CNN, like all of these lunatics claiming that Trump was staging everything? This is the problem we face as a country. Big tech and these media companies are insane. They're absolutely insane. I've just covered all of these different instances where leftists were screeching that, Trump was staging photos, that Trump was on his deathbed, but Trump was actually faking it. And all of that is allowed to remain. You have people coming out saying the president is faking his COVID diagnosis. And Facebook's like, well, that's fine. But if Trump comes out and gives his opinion, maybe it's wrong. Sure. That's gone. Twitter has flagged this post saying that, it's misinformation and it violates the rules, but it's important that we allow people to see it. I have good news through all of this, however. We're seeing this bias, but we're also seeing something else. Tucker Carlson shattering viewership records, the highest rated cable TV news show ever. And while that does sound pretty good, and it is, and Fox News is getting nearly 300 million views on YouTube in the past month, we still see CNN and MSNBC pumping out trash, garbage nonsense and getting an absurd amount of views. That's why I wonder, are they ever going to ban CNN for their psychotic conspiracy theories? I mean, I can't stress enough that Brian Stelter did this tirade where he's like, there's a government cover up. It would imply that all of these people are in on this conspiracy and it's just nuts. I grew up at a time when people were like, on the internet where they're like, stop the conspiracies, they go too far. And that's where we've been for the past several years. YouTube saying we've got to get rid of these conspiracy videos. All the flat earth stuff has got to go. What is it? There's an inflating earth theory. There's a bunch of these things. They're all gone. But you put a blue check mark next to their name and Brian Stelter can sit there screaming and ranting. Oh, Donald Trump is in a cover up. Oh, the government, they're coming to get us. He's lost his mind. These people hate Trump so much, they've gone crazy. And what scares me the most is that Facebook is removing Trump's posts. Okay. We are in a downward spiral of decay, of information chaos, where the certified journalists are ranting in an unhinged manner, and they're allowed to do it. You see, Tucker Carlson recently had on somebody. It was a female doctor from a university in Hong Kong saying she had evidence that COVID was actually manufactured. Show me the evidence. Otherwise, I'm not all that interested. But she's claiming to be a whistleblower, claiming she has evidence, and she issued a paper. Okay, I take it with a grain of salt the same I would any other claim. But this is on Fox News. Facebook flagged it as fake news. Instagram flagged it as fake news. And here's the crazy part. When they flagged it, they linked to an old fact check, which had nothing to do with Tucker Carlson's segment. Big tech is in the bag for the Democrats and for the left, and it should be obvious to everyone. And the problem is they're allowing them to rant and publish unhinged, psychotic conspiracy theories. And they've been doing it for a long time. I know all of a sudden, I'd imagine people heard that. I'd imagine people are watching and they're like, Tim, Rachel Maddow. Oh, I know. Yeah. Rachel Maddow for years ranting about Russians everywhere and propping up every conspiracy theorist imaginable who had no evidence anything was going on. And now our election is being influenced by this. I'm actually pretty worried. I see Tucker Carlson's ratings, but I'm looking at the ratings for everybody. Let me show you this story real quick to give you a gist of what's going on with Trump. Facebook removes Trump post comparing COVID-19 to the flu. Trump posted on Facebook and Twitter, flu season is coming up. Many people every year, sometimes over 100,000, and despite the vaccine, die from the flu. Are we going to close down our country? No. We have learned to live with it, just like we are learning to live with COVID. In most populations, far less lethal. What does that mean in most populations? Does that mean like there were almost no COVID deaths in Africa? What about these China, for instance, if Trump actually goes by their numbers? What about that is clearly and definitively incorrect? Now, I know the interpretation from members of the media. He's saying that flu is less lethal. Well, he said in most populations. What does that really mean? Is he talking about majority? I don't know. It should, in my opinion, you should leave it up. I don't see why Facebook would delete it or why Twitter would flag it. It's not your space to be editorializing, but that's what they're doing. What's fascinating to me about what Facebook has done and what Twitter has done is that they clearly have an editorial team that is taking these actions. If Twitter is going to publish information on Donald Trump's post, they may as well be the New York Times. If they want to act like a phone company, well, then they would just leave the post alone. And it's not their or anyone's responsibility if Trump is spreading misinformation. It's the responsibility of the journalist to say that. But they're not doing that. You see, the big tech companies are intervening on behalf of the Democrats to hurt the president and to hurt Republicans. And that's a fact. 216 ads, Donald Trump's campaign, were taken down recently because they were offended by the implications of Trump's posts. So that's what Trump's posted. CNN first reported the takedown. They say more than 209 Americans have died. We get it. The annual flu death total has been between 12,000 and 61,000 since 2010, according to the CDC. The last time that U.S. flu deaths hit an estimated 100,000 was 1968. We removed incorrect information about the severity of COVID-19 and have now removed the post, Facebook spokesperson Andy Stone said. The same Trump message was posted on Twitter. The platform placed a label on it. Trump returned to the White House Monday night. We know this, and he seems to be fine. Okay, all right. COVID misinformation. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Are you going to now ban all of the conspiracy theory posts where they claimed Trump was dying? Are these people going to get removed or flagged in any way? No, but shouldn't they? If a doctor comes out and says Trump is fine, and then these people come out and say Trump's not fine, Trump's covering it up, he's dying, shouldn't they say this is misinformation? The experts have told us. Who are the experts that have made the claims about COVID? Why is their word law? And why is it that we can't get flagging on these other lunatics like Brian Stelter? The dude has gone insane. And listen, man, I'm gonna stress this point. I have to. You may have seen my segment from earlier, but listen. If you go on national television and claim there is a grand government conspiracy, a cover-up over the president's health, when the president is clearly walking out of the hospital fine, you're insane. The president, he maybe has mild symptoms. Nuts. I can't believe it. And this is what they remove. Well, Trump's spreading misinformation. You have a whole network doing that. Oh, I know. They say Fox News does the same thing. Fine. Ban all of it. Because you know what? As much as people like to praise Tucker Carlson and Hannity, check this out. 6 days ago, Fox News finishes historic third quarter atop broadcast networks in key category. Hannity and Tucker Carlson tonight average more than 4 million viewers for the third straight quarter. Amazing. Check this out. October 2nd scoreboard. So this is just from a few days after. This is October 5th. Tucker Carlson, 5.059 million viewers. Woo! Wow. That is absolutely insane. That's crazy. That's crazy, man. People are watching. People are paying attention to Tucker Carlson, man. Well, here's the bad news. I see a lot of people that are propping this up and saying, like, this is amazing. You know, look how well Tucker is doing. And they're ignoring the key detail. During Tucker Carlson's 8 p.m. slot, Anderson Cooper got 3.192 million and Chris Hayes got 2.873. Now, I think it's better that CNN is getting more viewership than MSNBC because MSNBC is like the worst of the worst. But Anderson Cooper, I mean, he's not great either. I used to like him a lot more, but clearly he's just your network, bro. You've lost the plot. 9 p.m. Hannity got 4.442 million. Chris Cuomo got 3.147. Cuomo is a guy who faked a quarantine for ratings. It worked. They're being rewarded. Rachel Maddow got 4.122. So listen, Fox News is getting more views, okay? They are seeing these record numbers. Like Brett Baer got 5 million. That's incredible. And the 5 got 4.3. I mean, these are fantastic numbers for Fox News Channel. But MSNBC and CNN combined, plus the other networks, and the narrative on their side, on the left, is dominant. That's just it. They can come out and just say the stupidest, craziest, most garbled and insane trash. You can tell I'm really angry about this. I am really, really angry that Brian Stelter is pumping out just, it reminds me of the mid-2000s. The psychotic level of paranoid delusion from these people. Like as if the doctors are secretly colluding with all of these people. Like Trump comes into the hospital and he's like, I can't breathe. And the pilot from Ring 1 is like, heavens. And the Secret Service agents are like, oh no. And then after they like treat Trump, they all like pinky swear together, we'll keep this secret. Hurrah. What do you think is going on? And then the president walks out and you had people posting that he was had like an oxygen thing coming out of his nose, which he didn't. Is a piece of hair. And they tried claiming the hair. They've gone nuts. That's the only, I'm losing it, man. I'm just sick of this because it's like, no matter how crazy they get, no matter how much insane BS they pump out, just vomiting all over the table, nothing gets done about it. Nothing happens. And they go, but Fox News is fake news. You actually have these primetime hosts on CNN lying outright. It's funny. I grew up watching, Jon Stewart, Daily Show. Fox News was getting called out and mocked, ruthlessly. You had that moment where Bill O'Reilly was like, sun goes up, sun comes down. Tide comes in, tide goes out. And he got mocked for this. Yeah, Fox News, we made fun of. Now you've got Tucker Carlson, who's pretty good. And I turn on CNN and you've got Don Lemon saying like, a black hole could possibly swallow an airplane. What do you think about that, Mary? And she's like, oh, even a small black hole would swallow the whole universe. That's CNN. Now you've got Don Lemon saying like, Trump is turning this into reality TV when they literally hired a reality TV producer to run CNN. You got to turn it off, man. Turn all of it off. I don't care if you turn me off. Just turn it all off. Check this out. Social Blade ratings for Fox News, 281 million in the last 30 days. Sounds pretty good. 230,000 subscribers. Yeah, well, CNN got 204,000 with 200,000 subs. And you add MSNBC into the mix, they got 204,000 as well. Isn't that crazy? They both got 204,000. So they're at 408. Fox is at 281. I'm sorry, man. Big tech is censoring the president. They're shutting down anyone who dare challenges the orthodoxy. And our news cycle, our society is being informed by crackpot conspiracy theorists. Now, I know, of course, they say Trump is the conspiracy theory president who went on InfoWars and Alex Jones and all that stuff. Fine. Criticize it. That's okay. But it doesn't justify you doing the same thing. So what do? What do the sane, rational people do? The regular people who are watching this who are like, what do we do, man? I try every day to cut through the BS, and it is just, it's almost impossible. It's like the amount of institutional power that CNN has, MSNBC. It was, I think, May of 2018 that YouTube put this channel and my main channel on a blacklist. So by the way, share this video if you'd like to support it and let people know what's happening, I guess. They put on a blacklist. Why? Because the mainstream media companies accused independent personalities of being crackpot conspiracy theorists. And so what do? Is I read news all day and I compare and fact check and vet information. And I can tell you right now that CNN, they're done. Like if it's a dedicated show talking about a government conspiracy. I kid you not. Like, what are we supposed to do with that? Are we supposed to sit here and be like, well, they have no evidence and they're claiming all of these people are working together? I bring you now to American greatness. Silicon Valley and Team Biden collude to rig the 2020 election. Big tech censorship has nothing to do with accuracy or fairness. Now they go on to mention these war games and some of these things, but here's what they say about big tech. Unpunished and undeterred, big tech is working with subversive groups, such as the Transition Integrity Project and Protect the Results, misnomers to say the least, to purge their platforms of any content that calls out their tactics, particularly any post that questions the legality of vote by mail. Yeah. So apparently now they're warning us that if I do content saying like, hey, look at all of these problems, the New York Times reported, CNN reported, NPR reported, banned, strike, shut down. That's where we're headed. I fully expect to get banned in the coming months. I'm not even kidding. Or in the next month, we'll see what happens. Maybe they're gonna leave me alone. A lot of people say that I'm not edgy enough for them to actually ban. But if I tell you definitively, we have evidence that the mail-in system voting is broken, and the Democrats are the ones who pushed it, what are we supposed to do? So in Brooklyn, 100,000 ballots went out, and they had bad information. They had the wrong names. And so I said, bunk ballots being sent out in mass proves the Democrats have corrupted our election because they're the ones who called for it, and it's in a Democrat district. And then I get people saying like, why won't Facebook or why won't YouTube ban this? Ah, it's coming. It is. Because they need to maintain their narrative. You can't ban Fox News outright. They're a major cable network and they've been around for a long time. But channels like mine, I would not be surprised. They say Democrats plan to extend Election Day into January under the guise of counting every vote until they collect enough ballots to declare Biden the winner. While the process drags on, social media and internet providers will aid the effort by rigging content in the Democrats' favor. Their complicity already underway. Twitter is flagging posts that warn voters about the actual risks of mail-in ballots. A September 12th tweet by the president was flagged for violating the company's civic integrity policy as the country moves ever closer to an Atlas shrugged reality. The funny thing about that is it's true. We just saw Boeing announce they're leaving Washington. Tesla, of course, is leaving California. Joe Rogan leaving California. Yeah, it's kind of like Atlas Shrugged, huh? Because if you're not familiar with Atlas Shrugged, all of like the industrialists and wealthy individuals left and created their own utopia or whatever. Twitter's policy announced this month will ban misleading claims that cause confusion about established laws, regulations, procedures, and methods of a civic process, or about the actions of officials or entities executing those civic processes. An arbitrary gauge that gives Twitter cover to promote the Democrats' unprecedented mail-in ballot presidential election and squash any objection to it. Universal mail-in voting is not absentee ballot. Is not absentee voting. Big Brother's Bluebirds smacked another Trump tweet on Thursday after the president insisted unsolicited ballots will lead to election year mayhem. And that's an opinion. And I think it's a warranted opinion. Twitter disputed his post with a disclaimer. Experts and fact checkers have continued to assure American voters that voting by mail is safe and secure. One fact checker listed as ABC News. Twitter announced late Thursday that the company's public policy director was leaving to join Biden's transition team. It's fairly obvious what's happening. I have to wonder if Trump's going to win because we're seeing voter registration among Republicans is higher than Democrats. And we're seeing enthusiasm for Trump ridiculously high. And I'll tell you this, I know people who are going to vote for Biden, of course. But I don't know anyone who voted for Trump who is now giving up on Trump. Quite the opposite. I know people who voted for Hillary who are now voting for Trump. I didn't vote at all, and now I'll be voting for Trump. And so I have to wonder if this is all just fake news. But let me wrap it up with one thing, and then because I got another, I'm going to do a bigger segment on this later. The media game is rigged. For all the good news about Tucker, the media game is rigged. But if with that being said, I don't know if we can look at all the polls and just claim all the polls are fake. Right now, Joe Biden's lead over Trump in the aggregate is substantial. And a lot of people are saying, yeah, well, the polls were wrong in 2016. By the end of things, they were wrong only by a little bit. The forecasts were wrong. So I have to wonder if Donald Trump ends up winning, right? On November 3rd or 10th or December, whatever. With the polling as it is now, it will be the end of the media. The absolute end. Nate Silver will have zero credibility. None whatsoever. Every polling institution will have zero credibility because they're telling us Joe Biden's got, 12 points up in Pennsylvania. But the GOP is registering more voters in Pennsylvania. So how does that make sense? Could you imagine if they sacrifice all their credibility on these bunk polls and then Trump wins? Then people are going to say, you weren't just wrong like 2016. You were like 5 times worse because they're going double digits now. What would that mean? If Trump really does win, it will be the most shocking upset, I believe, in history, in the history of news and polling. That's why I almost can't believe it. Y'all better get out and vote. And I'll tell you this, man, if you're not doing it, you better canvass, okay? You better go and talk to people. Share them these videos and explain to them what's going on with the bias and the machine. Explain to them what is happening right now with the media and show them that unhinged, garbled nonsense from Brian Stelter. Ask them if they believe in grand government conspiracies. Maybe people do. Maybe they believe there are, grand conspiracies. In which case, I present you this. If Brian Stelter is rational and sane, claiming all of these people in the hospital are working together, then wouldn't it be rational and sane to claim the Democrats are working with the media to lie and manipulate the election? Well, which is it? Are grand conspiracies between government officials and the media real? Because the journalist in Trump's COVID case was also working alongside them? Or are they all crazy? And if they are, it's just bad news for the Democrats and the media. Because if it's true there is no grand conspiracy between Democrats and, members of the media or whoever else to rig the election, then the likelihood that CNN is correct is very, very low. And they're also very unhinged and conspiratorial lunatics. If the Democrats actually do engage in these kinds of conspiracies and the Republicans do as well, then CNN may be correct, in which case the Democrats are conspiring. I guess the point I'm trying to make is, if you believe in conspiracies, by all means, trust Brian Stelter, and then go ahead and assume that the Democrats are doing the same thing. Why not? Conspiracy News Network. That's what they've become. Meanwhile, big tech is shutting down Trump. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. It is my main channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.